We have 5 reasons why Duke by Genesis is an exceptional album that everyone should hear.
Coming up on States and Kingdoms. The reasons why we think Duke is a great album that everyone should hear, we have 5 reasons.
Yeah, we've distilled it to 5.
Yes, and there are more.
There's so many.
I just can't think of them. No, there are more. 1, Duke Suite.
Duke Suite.
2,
13/8.
13/8. 3, Heartbreak. 4,
Collaboration.
and 5, Tony Banks' favorite. So let's talk about it.
All right. The Duke Suite. So originally, they were thinking of doing an entire side of the album.
Mm-hmm.
All 6 songs that constitute the Duke Suite. Go ahead, list them.
Behind the Lines, Duchess, Guide Vocal, Turn It On Again, Duke's Travels, and Duke's End.
Very good. Very good. You've done your homework. So they were thinking about having it all in a row, all on one side, but then they thought it might raise too many comparisons to Supper's Ready, and they decided to do something different.
Yeah. Now, I don't think I would have compared it to Supper's Ready. I mean, that's just me. Would you have?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the question is, I mean, did they make the right choice? Was that the proper choice? The songs that are part of the Duke Suite are so strong, and I think ultimately they did. It holds the album together. Having Behind the Lines, Duchess, Guide Vocal, which are all linked.
Right.
They're
That's
still
the
all
very beginning.
linked. Turn
Turn
On
On
Again
Again is right in the middle there.
starts side 2. Duke's Travels, Duke's End, which is a reprise, and Duke's Travels also has Guide Vocal in it. So in a way, there is also something of a reprise in that.
Yeah. A callback, if you will.
Genesis never wanted to repeat themselves. They'd done Supper's Ready, which is an extraordinary piece of music, and they just wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do something
And
that they had already done. And that's kind of what this album marks the beginning of. You just have a different approach. And, obviously musicians just naturally do evolve. But yeah, the Duke Suite is fascinating because it is really the last time they did anything like that. At last time they thought about doing connected songs, a story.
Yeah.
And what's so awesome about it is that the story of Albert is a lonesome, melancholy, slightly funny, or you say sardonic story, which is typical for them, Genesis. Yeah. And the album itself is kind of introspective and a little angst-ridden,
It feels way
very
more
different.
introspective than a lot of things they'd done before.
Yeah, not melancholy like Wind and Wuthering has a tendency to be, but more, I had to say, like getting a little older, dealing with things that that you do. Certainly Phil, and but all of them, and it is more introspective. It definitely has a kind of morose sort of feel.
Personal. It's more personal.
Yes, the Duke Suite really wraps that up. Even though the story is fragmented, even though they don't tell it like they were going to, it still is present in the album, affecting the feel of the whole album. And I think it's really unusual, and and it sets Duke apart. It gives it a really unique character among all the Genesis records.
Agreed.
What do we mean by 13/8?
Well, let me tell you, Sean.
Okay.
Refers to Turn On Again, the time signature.
Right. And we know all about that.
Yeah, as a drummer, I'm an expert.
Okay, explain in detail.
13 claps of your hand to 8 stomps of your foot.
No,
I'm joking.
Yeah, the riff was written by Mike, according to,
Mike.
What? Yeah, it's according to Mike.
He told me. Also, he wrote that riff was intended to be a much slower tempo too.
Right.
Like Phil totally sped it up when they started.
It's just fascinating. Like even when you're writing something that's supposed to be kind of simple, or at least say basic, nothing that you're not trying to be complex.
Right.
Still, it comes out
Yeah.
of Genesis. Still, this song, and I think to some people this is just kind of a poppy song, but no one writes pop songs like this. No one writes things like this. If they do, it's probably Peter Gabriel. It's a anthemic song that you can't clap your hands to. It's like
so much fun.
It's a dancey song you can't dance to.
So energetic.
You're gonna look stupid at some point.
Yeah.
Trying to dance to this song.
It's so exciting. Just the beginning of it, the build up to the the synth
it is
comes.
Exciting. It's a great beginning.
Started with the bass line and the synth comes in. Mm-hmm. So great.
And I love as well lyrically again for Genesis. The lyrics may seem to be about this, on the surface, but a lot of the time, substantially, they are actually quite different than what you may think. And this song isn't fluff. It fits into the Duke Suite. It has to, and it fits into, the whole story and feel. I don't think
Genesis ever did fluff.
I mean, you could consider them more mainstream, poppier songs, like from here on out, but still, in my opinion, no one ever did that better.
Right.
People could do it as well, but I don't think anyone did it better.
And also, you and I, we've talked about this before. If they could have written mainstream poppy songs earlier, they would have done it.
And there are a couple of songs that are definitely in that mold. Certainly with, big hooks and,
Yes. If they could have had hits, they would have had hits.
Sure.
An artist is always trying to have hits.
Well, of course. You want people to like you and listen
you know
to
what
your
I'm
music.
saying. There's people out there that
I know
think
exactly
that they just all of a sudden were like, now we're going to be popular. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They didn't do that.
It's an incredible song, and it is exciting, and it deserved to be successful. It absolutely deserved to be a success.
It's one of my favorites. So Phil's been hurt.
He's been hurt.
Now, Phil was going through a divorce with his first wife, and I think it was the impetus to really begin writing songs. Phil had really not written a ton of songs.
He hadn't really written anything. Co-written.
So right before they started working on Duke, he had just done all the demos for his first solo album, Face Value. So he had just started writing a bunch of songs coming out of the turmoil of his marriage.
So this crisis pushed him into expressing himself differently. I think, sort of, I guess you could say, controversial one, because obviously there are Genesis fans that just really are upset that this happened. Well, if that's, if you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's fine. And there is a generational thing there. There's no question. If you were around back then, you do have a different perspective, generally speaking, from people that grew up hearing 80s Genesis. I mean, it was, and 80s Phil Collins, as a matter of fact.
All of it. Mm-hmm.
But I do think it for any musician, for any artist, it's a positive thing. I mean, when you have another songwriter, and I do think, it did ultimately enrich Genesis. Mm-hmm. Like I said, that is kind of a
you don't have to tiptoe around it.
It's fine. I
bold.
Want people to know.
Be bold. Say what you think.
I want them to understand that I understand.
I understand too.
You don't understand nothing.
But I disagree with them.
When you had him writing songs and being able to contribute, it just gave the band that extra perspective, that extra tool, that they did make use of. And it gave, Mike and Tony, who were two of the greatest songwriters in popular music.
Yeah.
And still are.
Right.
Just another person to carry the load, another person to have an opinion, another song to work on and contribute to.
But also changed how he sang.
Yeah, that it did.
So I think when Phil was writing and then singing these very personal songs, he's putting so much more emotion, his own emotion into it. I mean, he's a consummate performer. Yes. I mean, child actor. I mean, total performer. Like he's got that. He can act. He can put on a show. He can do it all.
Yeah.
But when he actually started singing his own words, I think a different kind of performance and emoting came out, which is really interesting. And so on Duke, the best example would be Please Don't Ask, because it's such a true song.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell it came right out of what he's going through, and it's, I think, so well done. And has so much real feeling in it, and I think I always loved it. I think it's a beautiful song, and it's not, I don't find it corny or, like overdone at all, because it just feels so real to me.
Mm-hmm. I think this is where he went from being a great singer to one of the greatest singers, and I do think he's one of the greatest singers.
Yeah, I agree.
That leads us in, what we just said before, does lead us into the other reason, which is collaboration, which is kind of obvious. Their approach changed, and Phil writing songs obviously did have a big impact on that, but all three of them, and this is really extraordinary because there are a lot of bands don't do this. And, we talked privately. I know, we don't talk privately. About even, yes, an unbelievably successful band. I mean, their success is astounding, and of course, we love them.
Love, yes.
But by the late 70s, they weren't collaborating. They didn't decide to collaborate. They split apart. With John Anderson wanting to do this, Steve Howe wanting to do that. And that's a different story, of course. Yeah. We're not getting into that. But
Very
Genesis...
different.
Having lost Peter Gabriel, having lost Steve Hackett, which,
Major changes.
Most
bands would not be able to pull it together.
Well, I was watching, footage of them from '73, and you see them on the stage, and I was just thinking, like, these are, like, the greatest, some of the absolute greatest musicians, incredible lead singer, incredible lead guitar player, incredible drummer, incredible,
bass player, rhythm player.
I was an accompanist.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike is as a rhythm guitar player is extraordinary, and then there's Tony Banks, who I don't even know what to say,
Genius, man.
He's he's very special.
Yeah.
And so you lose two of those guys, and instead of one of them thinking, well, now I can just put all my stuff here, they actually decided to collaborate and do things
they
together.
up a little more.
And so everything, even if you don't like it, to me, everything from I mean, I like it. And Then There Were Three. But it has some awesome songs, but it's flawed.
So maybe as a total composition,
yes.
it's a little bit different.
But everything from Duke basically is so fresh, and yes, I mean the albums are they change from album to album.
Well, they're always changing with the times. They're always moving along.
There's more differences between like even Duke and Abacab and Genesis than there are between like Nursery Crime, Foxtrot, and
yes, because they're I mean they looked around because they're smart and they were like, well, look at all this stuff that's happening now. Like we should try some new stuff. They wanted to try some new stuff,
and a lot of it was just to keep having fun, being excited about making music, and they felt the best way to do that was for all three of them to collaborate and and keep that nucleus of Genesis strong.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, no bands have their biggest success 10 years into their career,
this is
recording career.
10th album and their biggest hits. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy. They're such a special band, so unique.
Yes. That brings us to our final point about why Duke is a great album and why you must hear it.
Tell me.
All must hear it.
I'd love to know.
And if you've already heard it,
listen to it
again. I apologize. Listen to it again. Or give it another chance. That's a big part of our channel, is giving albums another chance.
Well, we do this all the time.
Yeah.
There are things. There's so many things that ages ago I took a chance on, bought the CD, of course, before Spotify, right? Yeah. So you had to actually buy the album to see if you like, right? So lots of times this happened. I heard about something, read about something, tried it. Didn't grab me. Right. I would try to listen to everything 3 times. By the 3rd time, it really wasn't doing it.
Right.
But I revisit things all the time. You revisit things, and then you never know. The time is right later on.
Right. So the point is, it's Tony Banks' favorite. And
yes. Duke is Tony Banks' favorite album.
So he said. And this
I believe him.
I mean, he's not all enthusiasm.
He's a little understated.
Oh, I love listening to him.
He talks a mile a minute.
Yeah, but he has such a dry sense of humor. It's great.
Yes.
But this is an album that he's proud of, and he said it's his favorite. Now that in itself maybe isn't quite a reason to think it's a great album, but this is really about the fact that we both think, and a lot of people think, but he should really get more renown. is that he is a genius. He
Yeah.
is at least brilliant on a level close to genius, anyway, if you want to be
Masterful songwriter.
understated.
Yeah.
His songs are unique. They're special. His feel for melody, his knowledge of music, his ability to write complex songs and have complex emotions come out.
And lyrics.
I know.
Which is the
That's
thing
why
about
some-
everyone in Genesis, at this point at least, was writing both music and lyrics.
Right.
You know, for 3 different people to be writing and for it to come together and be a complete package that is cohesive, and I mean, it's just
Yes, to not feel like
unreal.
I mean, you can tell you can tell Tony Banks songs,
Oh
but
yeah,
they don't
I mean,
sound,
if you know Genesis, you can
yes.
pick them out.
They don't sound appreciably different from, you know, anything else. I mean, you know, yes, you can pick up Mike's songs usually.
Right.
Phil's songs do become pretty obvious.
But yeah,
They all have
Tony
that
Banks,
Genesis sound.
A Tony Banks melody. Mm-hmm. You can get it.
There's as far as like his melodies are discursive but not wordy. He can tell stories and have real drama in the song, and he's exceptionally good at that. You know, on this album, Heathaze is just beautiful song.
And you said a very cinematic quality.
He does, and I know. I mean, it's something he did flirt with.
I wish
doing
he had.
soundtracks, but
I wish he really had done movie soundtracks.
You know, he does.
He still
have.
could.
Yeah, but they do have that cul-de-sac. Just opens like opens like a symphony. I mean, but at the same time, it does have a very cinematic quality.
There's such a great, especially on this album, like energy to so many of the songs, especially the way they begin. You know, I mean, from Behind the Lines to, I mean, all these songs just kind of like they rush at you in such a satisfying way.
And Heathaze is one that doesn't.
It's true. That's
builds,
a builder.
Yes, and it has peaks, and it's not just a straight crescendo. It's not just, but it does build, and the emotion builds to the end in just a way that only a masterful, brilliant songwriter is going to do, and he is really special. And so, you know, I take his opinion not lightly.
Right. I thank you.
Yes. You know, there are. This album it's right in the middle of Genesis. You know, this is when I started listening to it, and you know, obviously, because you've almost never stopped listening to it in a lot of ways. I mean, it's been.
Yeah.
But when I was listening to it and having listened to other Genesis stuff, I just felt like it's such a great mix of early Genesis, and then of course you can see where they're going. So it really does stand in the middle of their discography, and it has a little bit of everything that they had done, you know, and so for me it's very unique. It's really enjoyable, and I think it's important. I mean, I think in as far as being a Genesis fan, admiring them, it's a very important album for them. Obviously, we haven't made a video in a very long time.
What?
Obviously, to people that watch us, and we do appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. So now videos.
Yes. You know, we're going to do... if you like this format, please,
let us know.
Please leave a comment.
Yeah. Even if I don't answer them, I do read them.
Well, I thought you were going to say even if they're really mean. That's fine, too. I mean, that's okay. We're going to be going through mostly albums that we haven't talked about in the past. This is one that we did want to revisit because it was a long time ago.
There might be a few that we will go do again.
And the other thing, we're probably going to be putting out some very silly list videos at some point. You know, substantial trivialities, we call them. And
not silly, they're going to be fun.
I said trivialities.
Okay.
They're silly. Stay tuned to States and Kingdoms. Sean here.
Jenna here. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.